This program is brought to you by the Stanford Humanities Center. For more information, please visit us at shc.stanford.edu.
Grave relocation is one part of a much wider set of changes in contemporary China. It was an accident of this research that grave relocation and the spatial mapping out of that phenomenon would reveal in very stark terms just how profound these transformations are. We don't often think about this, but China has two very large populations. The population of the living, but China also has a second very large population. This is the population of the dead, of the deceased.
The Grave Reform in Modern China project is basically an effort to systematically map out a big database, a big collection of sites in China where the government is sort of moving grave sites into new locations to kind of make space for different kinds of new developments or agricultural land.
In just the past 15 years, somewhere in the order of 10 to 15 million grave sites have been exhumed and relocated with a profound effect on the families, local societies affected by this. Grave Reform in Modern China is a project that harnesses humanities scholarship and digital tools to analyze and narrate the story of funeral reform and grave relocation. There are three main types of data. The first are classified ads that are published by law. They have to be published in advance of a grave relocation that contains the core basic information about these relocations. Exactly where the graves were located prior to being moved, exactly when this happened. Just that set of data alone allows us to animate, to actually watch in sort of real time the national level story of grave relocation.
I went into each of the record, each of the grave relocation record, and recorded their time, their location, and the reason for relocation. If you don't put it on a map, it's just different entries in the Excel sheet. But once you put it on a map, you start to see trend, you start to see pattern, and that's when things get really interesting.
A whole other set of data, or really the primary sources for this project, are newspaper reports, periodical reports, government reports, popular blogs in China, where people are reflecting upon the process of grave relocation. We're going to be building a set of narratives, each a curated walking tour through this data from a distinct perspective.
When a user comes to the site, they see a two-panel layout where on the left side of the screen is the actual narrative being presented. And in the main area on the screen is the map of China with all the gravesite relocations. And then the software sort of produces a connection between the two where the reader can click on things in the text and be taken to the corresponding location in the map.
The narrative provides, in large part, the community level, family level, human level story of this phenomenon of grave relocation. The stories of the family who goes to their grave site during the grave sweeping holiday only to find it gone. The story of the grandchildren of a Second World War veteran who discovers through the media that the grave site of their grandfather has been dug up and moved. But at all times, the reader is prompted to never lose sight of where in China this is taking place, when it's taking place.
In addition to the actual grave relocation markers on the map, beneath that we have an overlay of demographic data that's showing the kind of underlying different types of trends in the country and the demographics of China. If I come in, we can see in a lot of places the way that the grave sites, and often in many cases, interact with those variables in interesting ways. For example, if I wanted to see the percentage of minority population relative to total population, I can change that variable. And now when I come back out, it's a very different view on the country.
We would love for this to become a platform where the historic record of these conversations can have a home. If a researcher or a journalist or an everyday student of contemporary China wants to explore and has a hunch or an instinct, they would have in front of them the tools that they need to test that hypothesis.
I grew up in Beijing, and when I met with Professor Mullaney, it was the first time I heard about the massive amount of grave relocations that were happening every year in China. People who look at this will think about the massive human impact of these grave relocations, which I don't think they will appreciate if they only look at papers or statistics.
There are lots of surprises in the data, even in this preliminary stage of the process. One is I had never before seen with my own eyes, and that's something that data visualization allows me to say. I'd never seen with my own eyes the degree to which the rise of third-tier and fourth-tier cities that do not show up in most media accounts of contemporary China, where the story of their rise to very large proportions is entirely rewriting and reshaping the map of contemporary China. These are only the lowest hanging fruit. I mean, now begins the process really of kind of climbing the tree of interpretation to the subtler, more difficult to reach interpretations.
A big part of this is trying to build a platform that makes it possible for a group of scholars to contribute not just sort of a single author digital work, but kind of a collaborative work. Thinking about it in the vein of a kind of an edited edition on in a digital environment.
There's absolutely no doubt that digital tools, visualization techniques from this other side of the humanities is basically a kind of hypothesis generation machine. It brings to light possibilities in the archival data, in the ethnographic data, in the oral historical data that if you had only sat with those materials alone may never in 1,000 years have occurred to you.